All right, everyone, welcome back to week 5 of the Master Your Day self-study program, where we're going to dive even deeper into the advanced habit change concepts. Like I've told you in the past, these are things it took me years of trial and error and experimentation to find not only what was most profound, but what actually worked. Many things will seem really profound and like a beautiful insight at the time, but when you get into the actual application, you focus on action, not motion, like we talked about in the last video, you come to find that certain things just aren't practical for either the situation you're in or for you as a whole. What I've worked to do is find the timeless principles that you can apply to any situation and see an increase in results. Naturally, we're gonna find the little tweaks and modifications that work best for us within these strategies, but the core of the strategies and the core of the mindsets are things that I have found to work for me, people of all ages, all backgrounds. So this is the incredible power of understanding how the mind works, how mindset works, because that's two different things, how to set up our habits, and then how we actually work towards achieving our goals. So let's dive into week 5. Before we dive into the content, I want you to reflect on how this past week has gone. How was it setting up your Kaizen habits? What went well, what didn't? Because guys, what my friend Jason Goldberg says that I love is that there is no error, there is no failure, it's just data. We treat what goes as expected and what doesn't go as expected just as data and nothing else. Then it becomes a curiosity-driven process versus a shame and guilt process. If we look at something and go, hey, this didn't go well, damn it, you blew it, you always do this, there's shame and guilt, there's less likelihood you're gonna go back to try again. But if you say, that's interesting, it didn't go as expected, I wonder why. Or, hey, that went as expected. What were the things I did to set myself up to succeed? All of a sudden, you're having a very different conversation in your head about this change. So when you think about this past week, rather than it be things went great, things were terrible, it's time to look at the data and say, what can you shift to better serve yourself? What tools can you utilize or what concepts can you apply to achieve a better result and improve the data? Remember to utilize your tracking, because the more that you're able to track, the better data you have, the more you can start to investigate, be more curious, spot patterns and trends where you might say, hey, I'm doing really good with my physical challenges, but the mental stuff, the spirituality, the journaling, and the meditation, I seem to have a lot of resistance there. Maybe it's time to chunk the habit down smaller. Maybe it's time to think of a different way to do it. Maybe I set a different implementation intention and I associate something that makes it more satisfying so that I'm more likely to do it. Maybe I habit stack it where when I have my cup of tea, I do my journaling, so that you're setting yourself up for the best possible result. Real quick, I'm going to review a few of the concepts from last week's so that we have them fresh in our mind as we build on those concepts in our advanced habit change conversation. Do you remember what the two most common cues are for a habit? Time and location. And what were the 4 laws of habit change? To make a habit, make it obvious, easy, attractive, and satisfying. To break a habit, make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. When we think about creating a habit, the first 3 laws, make it obvious, easy, and attractive, increase the probability of the habit happening the first time. The 4th law increases the likelihood of it occurring again and recurring over time. Remember, when you're first setting up a new habit, you want to utilize the 2-minute rule to have it be something that takes 2 minutes or less, so we minimize the likelihood that it's going to trigger an amygdala response and pull you away so you engage in fight, flight, or stay. We want to make sure it's in a window where your brain doesn't even register and goes like, yeah, sure, 2 minutes, that's nothing, that's fine. And then slowly over time, all of a sudden, you've built this incredible new habit. And remember, when your mind goes, that's too small, we're not moving fast enough, we're not doing enough, we need to move quicker, we need to do more. We're playing the long game, and we're not focused on losing 10 pounds. We're focused on becoming the type of person that never misses a workout. We're not focused on reading a book or 2 books or 10 books. We're focused on becoming a lifetime reader and a lifelong reader. Focusing on identity-based goals versus outcome-based goals and building these concepts upon each other over time is how we continue to make progress and continually improve our results over time. We then talked about implementation intentions. I will do X behavior at this time in this location, and using that to decrease decision fatigue between us and actually accomplishing this habit. We also talked about habit stacking, which was after current habit, I will do new habit, or the sandwich version where you take 2 existing habits and put the new one in between so that your brain has this open loop it wants to close, and the more probable habit is increasing the likelihood of doing the less probable one at that time. Then we close by talking about the difference between action and motion. Now, motion is everything that prepares you to take action. Action is the actual execution. That motion is key and is critical, but many people get trapped in motion and never take the action, so they can't learn the lessons they need to actually make the shifts, and nothing will shift without that action. So be sure to apply action. And in many cases, the consequences of taking action are not something that is irreversible. So when you are quickly able to right course or correct things or resolve the error or resolve the mistake, it's best to move as quickly as possible, learn, grow, apply the lessons, and then keep moving forward. Now, as we continue our advanced habit change conversation, we're going to take concepts we've already discussed and build on them even more to expand our knowledge on that concept and give us even more insight and awareness into what it is that we're doing and how to best structure the changes we want in our lives. We've talked a lot about the comfort zone and how when we step out, that's where the amygdala gets triggered, and how to effectively start to shift our habits so that we don't aggressively trigger the amygdala to initiate our fight, flight, or stay response. But I want to give you an extra principle or an idea to latch onto so we can really lock this deep into your mind. This principle is called the Goldilocks rule. And the Goldilocks rule says human beings experience peak motivation when they are working on things right at the edge of their current abilities. Something that's not too hard and not too easy. If we used working out as an example, and you said, you know what, I want to run more, and the most you've ever done is run 2 miles. If all of a sudden you said, tomorrow I'm going to run 100, you're kind of far out on the edge and you might be setting yourself up to fail or setting yourself up for injury. But if you say, okay, I know I can do 2, let me see if I can double that. I've talked to my friends, that shouldn't be anything crazy. I've been doing 2 miles for a while. That's gonna push me. I'm gonna get outside my comfort zone, but I'm going, when I have this bubble, I'm going just past the bubble. I'm going just out here. So maybe the amygdala starts to wake up a little bit, but it's not coming at me hard to try and stop me from taking this action. And what that does is over time, this comfort zone, by applying the Goldilocks rule, starts to increase and increase and expand. So what was 2 miles is now 4 miles, is now 6 miles. And this expands over time as we continue to take repeated action and slowly push the edge of that circle. We're not jumping out and doing 100 straight off the bat. We're not doing, all right, I ran 2, now I'm gonna do 2.1. Where your brain goes, of course I can do that. That's easy. I've been doing 2 for years. This is no problem. So there's no motivation there because it's not stretching you at all. But when we start to push our comfort zone to expand and go outside of it without going too far that the amygdala is triggered, we experience peak motivation and excitement because we come back because there's a slight doubt in our mind that we go, I don't know if I can really do this. Let me see. And then when we reveal our ability to ourselves, we're able to go, oh my God, that was amazing. What else can I do? Here's the beautiful thing about going outside your comfort zone. When we start to push our comfort zone and challenge our existing beliefs and prove our existing beliefs wrong, then it begs the question, where else am I holding myself back? Where else is the only thing between me and my goals, me, my mindset, my belief, or my lack of action? Because then, once we've identified the problem and we have that awareness, then it's time to identify our next steps and get moving, take action, and start making those changes. Another concept we've covered very heavily is habit loops. And if you remember, when I first mentioned habit loops, I said there's a cue, there's a routine, there's a reward, and then it loops, and in the middle there's a craving. Now, I touched on that very briefly because I knew I was going to be expanding on it in this video. That at the core of every habit is this little craving that's driving the entire thing. We have a craving for stress reduction. We have a craving for peace. We have a craving for good feelings. And then our mind is again looking for the easiest, fastest, most convenient way to get there, to achieve that and to satisfy that craving. You have to realize that your habits are modern day solutions to ancient desires. These are just new versions of the old vices. So here's a couple of examples of the ancient desire and how it might manifest in the current world or the modern day. That ancient desire, I should conserve energy in case any danger comes up or in case I need that energy. Then we're just sitting on the couch watching TV. We're like, I should get up and work out, but I don't really feel like it. Ancient desire, obtain food and water, survive. Modern solution, how about a beer? Find love and reproduce? Why not jump on Tinder or some dating app and go find somebody? Connect and bond with others? Go browse Facebook. Win social acceptance and approval? Post on Instagram. Reduce uncertainty in your environment? Search on Google. Achieve status and prestige? Play video games. The really interesting thing, because we're seeking instant gratification, is that we're looking for the easiest, closest, and most accessible thing. And we're getting these little hits of dopamine every time we do these small things. But all that really does is give us just enough dopamine and just enough satisfaction that we stop where we're at and we don't take any further action that would lead to actual meaningful change, which inevitably means we get the stress, we get the feeling, we want to change, we want to seek connection, we want to build that business, we want to do that thing. Then all we do is engage in some instant gratification, instant dopamine hit action. And then we go, oh no, I feel good. Things aren't that bad. And we stay stuck. We have to catch ourselves. We have to shake ourselves out of this pattern and realize how that instant gratification is actively holding us back. There are points in our day that James Clear calls decisive moments. And these are the moments in our day where we are literally choosing 1 or 2 paths that will limit the amount of options that we have further down the path, further down the tree. Imagine a tree where you have your decision point, you have 2 choices, and then this one branches out, and this one branches out, and it goes all the way out. And imagine it looks like this. You have a decision point. You and your partner want to go out to get some food. So you say, hey, let's go to a restaurant. Your goal is to eat healthier and become the type of person that fuels their body in an amazing way, that gives lasting energy and helps you work towards the things you really want. You're at a decisive moment where you could either go to that really unhealthy restaurant that you always go to, or you could go to a different restaurant that doesn't have the unhealthy options on the menu and increases the probability of you achieving your goal for that day. That's a decisive moment because by taking this route, you're removing options that would take you further and further down this negative route. So this is where those small moments in our day become so critical, because we might think when we're about to choose between the unhealthy food or the healthy food, whether we're going to work out or not, whether we're going to make the call or not, whether we're going to ask that person out or not, it may seem so inconsequential and trivial, but what you find is that you're either adding or reducing options depending on which direction you go towards the things you really want. So by understanding this concept of the decisive moment in that decision tree, you're better able to react and respond in the best way towards your bigger goals and dreams, especially when you've got a clear why and clear goal in mind. There's another important concept that actually comes from economics, but applies heavily to our habit change journey as well, and it's called the time inconsistency in the brain. In economics, this means our minds evaluate rewards in an inconsistent way over time. And what that actually boils down to is we value the present more than the future. If you think about it from economics and finance, the idea of investing now to get money later, people go, I don't want that. But then the idea of buying a lotto ticket and maybe making a lot of money, that seems so much more appealing. So although this investment may have a much greater probability of providing returns, part of our brain goes, yeah, but that instant satisfaction is so good. In economics terms, think of this example. You've got $50 that you could invest, or you could buy that really good meal. Your brain is much more likely to go, that instant gratification seems so much better, and it's going to magnify this. But then the benefit of making that investment of $50 and seeing it grow over time and then adding to that investment, it's going to say, that's way out here, and it's going to diminish the perceived value so that this meal just seems so much more valuable and so obvious why that's the best choice. This is where we need to become very conscious and aware of our habits, because our habits can very quickly fall into instant gratification because of this way that our mind values things inconsistently over time. This is a great quote I love that really wraps up this point well. The more immediate pleasure you get from an action, the more strongly you should question if it aligns with your long-term goals. Now here's the beauty of this. Since our mind is craving instant gratification and it's creating a different value structure based off the immediacy of rewards, we can use that to our advantage. This is why we're focused on momentum, consistency, and creating wins over time. Remember, the fourth law of habit change is to make it satisfying, so we want to create enjoyment, especially at the end of an activity. When we have a habit that we want to implement and we want it to stick long-term, as we do it, we need to make the ending of that activity more memorable and more positive. That way, the next time we go to do the habit, we remember the very end of the last time we did it. Imagine you were doing a workout, and at the end of every workout, you're like, that was brutal, and it's terrible, and you just have all these negative emotions about it. The next time you're gonna go start a workout, that's what you're gonna remember. Versus if you finish the end of your workout and you're like, yes, hell yes, you high five yourself, you make yourself a nice cup of tea, you give yourself some wonderful reward, you dance, you listen to your favorite song, you do things that are aligned with that bigger goal, all of a sudden the next time you're gonna go work out, even if it's really tough in the workout itself, at the end you're like, man, I feel great and I dance every time and I feel really good. So I want to do this again. We're making it more satisfying. We're using instant gratification, and we're reminding ourselves that right at the end of that, I always have this great feeling because of this activity and this habit. So we're linking these things all together for the best possible result to help us not only enjoy our habit change more, but keep doing it long term. I know I talk about that a lot because those are two of the biggest things. It's how do we do it the first time and how do we keep it going? And I will emphasize ways to do that throughout this entire program. Here's a couple more small examples to think of how to make the ending more satisfying for a habit you want to keep and the ending more dissatisfying for a habit you want to get rid of. If, like me, for most of your life you struggle getting out of bed in the morning, when you get out of bed, do something fun and exciting. So you want to get up, snooze that alarm, stretch your arms, do something, give it a big stretch, smile, remind yourself of a joke, put on a happy track or music or motivational podcast, because then you start to associate it with something wonderful. It even could be text a gratitude message, send a message to someone you love and let them know how much they mean to you. Because guys, these changes shouldn't be all willpower and grit. As you've learned in the last couple of weeks, there is so much power in creating play and fun in these changes too. Now let's use the inverse to talk about a habit you want to break. And another great example from the book Atomic Habits talks about if you're overspending and you want to stop overspending. How can we make the end of that something satisfying when it's something we're trying to get rid of? You can link it to something positive that you actually want to do. Let's say you're eating out all the time and you realize you're spending so much and you really really want to cut down or you want to cut out eating out for a while because you're doing it way too much. You also know you have a goal to take a trip to Europe. So then you can link the two together by saying, okay, I'm not going to go out tonight, and every time I don't go out that I would have in the past, I'll take $20 or $50 and put it in towards my Europe vacation fund. Now you abstaining from a habit is linked to a greater dream and goal. So these are beautiful ways that you can start to make the habit change fun. And in the past, something that may have felt like you were robbing yourself of something or you were sacrificing this, in fact, that sacrifice now is applied to something even greater and more meaningful, when the meal you would probably forget within an hour, but that trip to Europe, you'll remember the rest of your life. And in doing so, we're increasing our connection and our motivation to achieve that goal. Now, guys, as always, I said I would be real with you throughout this entire process. So is it suddenly going to become easy when you put in an implementation intention and you put a certain reward system in? Not necessarily. Some rewards may hit right away and may function perfectly. Other things you're going to need to test and iterate. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about having the resiliency, the curiosity, and looking at it as data and going, okay, that one didn't work. What could I do to better serve me towards my specific goal at this point? In a prior lesson, we talked about the cardinal rule of habit change, which says, what is rewarded is repeated, what is punished is avoided. But now we're going to expand on it even further as we go deeper into these concepts. By adding one word to each of those sentences, we drastically change the difference and increase the power of the statement. So now our updated cardinal rule of habit change is what is immediately rewarded is repeated and what is immediately punished is avoided. And this is all linked to that time inconsistency in our brain. The closer we can bring the benefit and the reward to the things we want, the more likely they will stick. As we talked about, the focus should be consistency and momentum. If you're having trouble being consistent, shrink it down, make it even more Kaizen, go even smaller until you build consistency over time. One of my favorite quotes from the book Atomic Habits is when he's talking about a habit, he says, missing once is a mistake. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. So when you miss, acknowledge it. It's data. You got it. What can you do to set yourself up to succeed the next day and make sure you don't miss twice and you don't start a new habit trail? Now, I want you to go look at your workbook week 5 activity, because this is going to help us expand on our advanced habit change concepts and apply them to the specific results you're working to get in your life. Now that we've covered identity, values, and our why, we've covered effective goal setting, and we've covered both basic and advanced habit change concepts, now we want to create routines. And routines are groupings of habits that we do regularly in order to take care of our mind, body, spirit. Having an empowering and consistent morning and evening routine is one of the most commonly recommended things from high performers that I've met and interviewed on my podcast, that I've studied in other people's work, that I've gotten to know over the years. Having consistent things you do to prime your mind, body, and spirit for the day ahead, to plan, to be effective, makes such a huge difference, and I will say it's one of the biggest game changers in my own life. So next week, we're going to go into how you can set up a wonderful, empowering morning routine, and I'm going to share with you the things that I did and the things I've helped my clients do to help me go from being a person who struggled with mornings for over 2 decades to being a person who now gets up regularly at 5 a.m. and is more productive in a week now than I was in prior months in my life. If you're ready to learn what I do in my mornings, what I teach my clients, and what I've learned from some of the best minds in the world in this space, be sure to check out next week's video. I will see you at week 6.